In the midst of war and terrorism around the world, listen to this news about the Pentagon. A Defense Department audit finding hundreds of Pentagon workers are using government-issued credit cards to pay for gambling and pornography. Fox News correspondent Rich Edson is live in Washington. Rich.
Well, Greta, defense officials tell Fox News those of the department swiped DoD credit cards nearly 4,500 times, spending nearly $1 million at casinos from July of 2013 through June of the following year. The Inspector General also reports 900 transactions for adult entertainment establishments, totaling almost $100 grand. All this a minuscule fraction of DoD credit card spending, though the official says the employees may have picked up the tab for many of these charges, opting to identify them as personal expenses. So it's unclear how much the government may have paid for adult entertainment, if at all. Politico first reported the details of the Inspector General's findings. Its report says the employees may have used their government credit cards to hide these charges, including gambling and escort services, from their spouses. It also reports that since the review was an audit of the department's credit card system, not individual workers, the result of these findings will be a reminder that this type of behavior violates government policy. Greta.
Rich, thank you. And joining us, our political panel, National Review's Katherine Timpf, and the associate editor of the Wall Street Journal, John Bussey. John, how does this happen? This is so insane.
It is. It's like the clueless and the damned, right? I mean, this is just bizarre. One, it's either a failure of the Department of Defense to educate people that you're not supposed to use DoD credit cards for personal.
And do you need education for that?
Exactly. I mean, the second thing is enforcement. I mean, is the supervisor looking, this stuff over? But look, at the end of the day, if someone's going to do this and be as clueless as this, maybe what DoD does is take 100 or 300 of the worst infractions and just post them with the names and what they brought.
How about maybe even a prosecution? Because, I mean, it's unauthorized use. It must be some crime. Catherine, your thought on that?
Definitely. It's 2008 is when the GAO came out and said this is an increasing problem, abuse of these government credit cards. And now 7 years later, here we are. It's the same thing. And it's a different excuse every time. This one, they're saying, okay, they're trying to hide this from their wives. But you remember Department of Homeland Security found the Coast Guard was spending thousands of dollars at one coffee shop. So it isn't just these kinds of immoral activities. That adds another layer to it. But clearly it's not taken seriously, or else it wouldn't keep happening, right?
Well, who should be doing something about this? I mean, it's night after night we talk about these credit cards, government credit cards being misused.
Yeah, so it's the boss of the person, right? It's the supervisor at the kind of local level. So it's not just the individual who has been using them. Look, if it's a Starbucks and you make a mistake and your DoD card instead of your MasterCard, that's one thing. But this is not that, right? This is much more egregious. So it's not just the individual, but it's the supervisor that's supposed to be watching out for this and supposed to be signing off on the expense accounting. That should be looking and saying this is not only not permitted, but you're clearly doing this for some reason, which is probably to hide it from your spouse, husband or wife, and you're going to get hammered for it.
So what's the consequence, Catherine?
That's the problem. I don't think there are that serious of consequences. That's never part of the story. They expose it and they say, hey, we found this, but there's never a story of, and then, like you said, I think that's a great idea. This person and this person and this person. Maybe you think a little bit more about going out and
that was John's idea to put it online. Actually, the more I think about it, that's a great idea. Because the reason they're doing is they're trying to. I mean, presumably some of this is hiding it from a spouse. So, I mean, that's a punishment.
10 or 15 postings will prevent the next 15,000 of these things happening.
It's a lot more than just being one of the numbers of people that did this. Say, hey, you're the guy that's spending government money on gambling and adult
honey, why are you hiding it? And honey, why are you hiding it?
Right.
Anyway, all right, panel, stay with us. And get ready to throw something. The IRS just did it again. This time a new report by the Treasury Inspector General finding the IRS promoted employees who cheated on their taxes. From 2004 to 2013, thousands of employee cases were investigated for cheating, and the IG says 1,580 of those cases were employees intentionally cheating. And it gets worse. In 60% of the intentional cheating cases, IRS managers refused to fire the employees, many of them even getting promoted. Our panel is back. The National Review's Katherine Timpf and associate editor of the Wall Street Journal, John Bussey. John, what? How does this happen?
Well, it's a city where everybody's spending somebody else's money, right? And so it's a big bureaucracy, and it's slow to move, and it doesn't operate the way private industry does. What we don't know is the type of infraction. All right, so little small things. Does a person really deserve to get fired for? No. But for more serious infractions, the story, which is in the Washington Times, says that only 1% of those found to have had these infractions were ultimately fired.
Here's the problem, is if you inflate your expenses, that doesn't sound obviously the difference between inflate $1 or you inflate $1 million, except for when you come to the point it says intentionally, so then it doesn't make a difference. Because once you form the intent, I think these are and these employees, I'd refer them to the Justice Department. These are crimes. Those who claim the stimulus home buyers tax credit without buying a home. That's fraud.
Right. There's no way that could be interpreted any other way. You definitely know if you bought a home or not. You're definitely scamming. And to keep your job because of mitigating circumstances and get promoted, there's a law that they're supposed to be fired if they do this. But in 60% there were mitigating circumstances. What were those?
There's no mitigating circumstance. Like if you didn't buy a house, you didn't know you bought a house.
Yeah. What's the circumstance there? Oh, I thought I bought a house.
You know, how does Commissioner Koskinen keep his job, John? And I know he's only been on, I think, since December of 2014. But you know that at some point you got to send a message to the American people: we give a damn, and we're not doing the most absurd things and finding cheaters within our ranks and promoting them.
Yeah, here's the big issue for the American public, which is that, look, you know, these are the cops on the beat. And at a certain point, you expect the cops on the beat to be at the standard that everybody else is held to, actually even higher, right? Because it gives credibility to the regulators. When the regulators have this kind of problem, and again, not everybody deserves to be fired. It depends on
I think anyone who intentionally cheated deserves to be fired. You know, I got to tell you, intentionally is my key word.
Yeah, if it's a couple of bucks, you know
what? Intentionally, you tried to rip off the taxpayers. I don't care if it's $1 or whatever. Intentionally, get out.
So let's go down.
If I made a little mistake, then they certainly wouldn't have any
trouble auditing
on
you. Yeah, that's true. But let's go down that road. Regardless, at the end of the day, it is the credibility of the organization. And if you expect the average taxpayer to live up to the rules, you've got to hold your own to account.
And that just doesn't happen. That's not happening.
They don't have to. They don't have any incentive to do so because there's no punishment, clearly. It's not like it's a business where they have to make sure they're hiring honest, good people in order to function and do well and flourish. They just probably didn't want to fire their buddies.
I think Koskinen should go with all these problems, these emails showing up with Lerner. I think President Obama should push him out or fire him. And you know what? And I also blame Congress. Their job is for oversight, and they just do aftersight. They hold hearing after hearing after hearing, and we hear this and nothing gets done.
It's interesting in this story as well that the IRS response to this was that, look, we'll be more transparent, we'll be more proactive, that was your word, but we want the commissioner to still have discretion in these cases. And that's really not what the public wants to hear.
Right, well, it's not working.
It's like having it's just, I don't know, it's disgraceful. Anyway, panel, listen to this one. More taxpayer money down the toilet. Senator John McCain releasing a series of reports called America's Most Wasted. And today his office claiming that this year $294 billion of your tax dollars will go toward expired government programs. Just expired government programs. Catherine, I mean, expired?
Expired government programs. Nobody's communicating.
What are these?
Nobody's communicating. There's expired programs that they're still spending money on. There's there's agencies that are both working on the same program, doing the exact same thing. More than 40 agencies are working on different emergency medical equipment or non-emergency medical equipment. They haven't met since 2008. They finally haven't met since 2008. There's no way you're communicating like that. It's just, I don't know if it's laziness. I don't know if no accountability, but that's a lot of money just be wasting because you don't want to try to bother to do better.
You don't always bother to do about this stuff, Janice. I talked to a lot of reporters, and this one's $294 billion. That's a lot, but we're so used to billion that we don't, like, nobody has any sort of thought of like how huge that is. I mean, you should be out. I hate when reporters say, well, it's only 5 million or something.
Right.
You know, we've gotten used to these big numbers.
That's true.
But this is incredible.
That's true. Well, you know, let's say $4 trillion in government spending, $292 billion, 7% of that. Is being wasted, according to John McCain.
Do you know what that do for my hometown? I mean, that kind of money. I mean, everyone can go to college. In fact, everyone does. No one has to go to college. They're going to be so rich.
My favorite was in the McCain report was one that he articulated, which was that they're still spending on research for a grant that's expired for the Army to determine the effectiveness of bomb-detecting elephants. So, you know. Where did that research go? Why was it initiated? And where did research go? And why are we still spending on it after the program ended?
And you know what? And I feel very bad for the American people because you know what? This is terrible. This is terrible that you know no one's doing anything about this. You know, and I mean, it's beyond words.
Right, and you see it all the time, wasting on this, and nothing is really ever done about it. I mean, the elephant thing is ridiculous. I don't even know whose idea that was. African elephants.
Maybe we should put names on who fostered these.
Yes,
you know, whose
exactly.
idea it was.
Who thought it'd be great to have elephants walking around and looking for bombs? Who thought that was a feasible idea? And why are we still spending money on it?
So McCain has a bigger point, too. Not only is he concerned about the waste, but in an op-ed in the Journal last month, he says, look, we have the sequestration. He's concerned about the military getting less money from Congress over time. And his point is, look, if we're going to be asking for more money, if we're going to seek some relief from the sequestration, we have to make sure that there's not
right, everyone agrees that this is bad. So I don't get, like, if everyone agrees, like, why doesn't it get fixed? I mean, is there anyone who disputes that waste is a bad thing?
Because it's a $4 trillion budget.
Still, wouldn't you like to be a hero? I mean, I changed this. We're not paying for these ridiculous things.
Yeah.
Well, or they want to be creative and think they came up with a new idea or a new program that can make them look good. Nobody likes someone who's cutting things, right? It's easy to demonize somebody for cutting things. They're hurting this person or that person or that person. But if you want to talk about consequences, you're definitely being hurt by having your money wasted like this.
Hannah, thank you.
Pleasure.
And up next, I'll ask presidential contender Senator Rand Paul what would he do about Edward Snowden.